All right. For our friends joining us online, if you can just give us a thumbs up or put in the chat that you can hear us okay and see the presentation. We getting anything? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you see me looking at one way in the room and on Zoom, it's because we have a hybrid event today. Sorry, I'm still getting, practice figuring out how to do this hybrid stuff, but we're glad to have students both in person and via Zoom. So my name is Kyle Roush. I serve as the director of the Study Abroad office here at UIC. And we're here today to talk about one of the best scholarship programs for study abroad that's out there, the Gilman International Scholarship. This is an incredible opportunity that many UIC students in the past have been successful at earning to help fund their study abroad experiences. And our students are honestly very competitive for this scholarship. So although it is a nationally competitive scholarship, and that might make you feel like you don't have a chance, is absolutely not true for this particular scholarship. And I think you'll find out why during our presentation. So I'll be leading the presentation day up here at the front, but I do want to introduce my colleague Kenny, who is helping man the Zoom chat. So if you have questions, he'll be helping field that. But Kenny, why don't you pop on up here so you can say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Kenny. I work in the study abroad office as the study abroad advisor. I'm the one that you would meet with in the exploratory stages when you're still deciding what programs to do and also what countries to go to. So I'm your first point of contact for study abroad. And then after that, if you're looking at a program that falls within my portfolio, then which would be Spain, Czech Republic, Hungary, then you would work with me as your advisor, or I would route you to the appropriate program advisor. So just like a little bit about my background, I was a business major. I actually didn't study abroad at all when I was in college, but once I graduated, I decided that I wanted to step outside my comfort zone like everybody does in their 20s, and I decided to go abroad. So I went to the Czech Republic, which is why that's one of the countries I advised for. Went to South Korea, and then I also went to Spain. I taught English in those countries. I didn't study, but I did take Spanish classes, so I kind of did like an independent study abroad. But yeah, that's my journey. And that led me here to working as a study abroad advisor, because now I'm at the stage where I want to give that experience back to students. And I want to make sure you guys do it at a younger age than I did. So that's my story. And Kyle is going to take over and we'll get into Gilman.
Thanks. Thank you, Kenny. And by way of a quick introduction about myself, so my first study abroad actually was in high school. When I was a junior, my French teacher wrote a small grant to take a small group of us to an island off the west coast of France called Noirmoutier. And to say it changed my life is obviously a vast understatement because I'm working in study abroad, but it truly did on so many levels. It helped me become more confident in myself, develop leadership skills. I came from a very small town. I was the first in my family to go to college, so it just truly opened my eyes to the many opportunities that exist. I ended up declaring a French major because of this experience, studied abroad in Paris 2 more times while I was in college, and then did an internship at Parliament in London. You might be thinking, oh, he must be rich. He studied abroad so many times. I can assure you my family was not. I had to fund my programs by myself through scholarships like the Gilman. And so that's what I want you to know. If you want to study abroad, don't let cost be what prevents you from starting an application. That is what Kenny, myself, and my colleagues are here for. That's why opportunities like the Gilman exist, because we want to see more students having these opportunities. So with that said, let's dive in and learn a little bit about this great program. And while I'm doing this, for those of you in the chat, I'd be curious to know if you have a country of mind you're interested in, put that in the chat. I know we heard from you, you're interested in South Korea, and our other attendee, what about you?
Oh, South Korea.
South Korea, all right, very popular destination, excellent. And we'll see where our friends in the chat want to go. All right, South Korea party. Ireland, nice. Excellent. Madrid, awesome. Keep putting those in the chat and we'll get started now. Okay. So the Gilman International Scholarship is a scholarship program that is actually coordinated by the U.S. Department of State. So when I say it's a nationally competitive scholarship, that's what that means. The funding has been provided by the U.S. government because the U.S. government wants to see more U.S. students studying abroad. I always like to say this little trivia factoid. What percentage of American undergraduates study abroad? Just throw out some guesses and you can play along in the chat. 43%. 8? Did I hear 8?
30?
30%. All right, let's see if we got guesses in the chat. 8, 15. All right, Flora, you're our winner, 10%. So only 1 out of 10 US undergrads study abroad. I don't know about you, but when I learned that statistic, I was shocked because to me, it's like travel seems exciting when everyone want to do it. Yes, but we know there are very real obstacles in the way, right? And funding is chief among that. So that's why the scholarship program was created. All right. So this just has some interesting stats about the Gilman Scholarship Program. The last academic year, 58% of the students who received a Gilman Scholarship were the first in their families to go to college. If you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to know, do we have any other first-gen students? As I mentioned, I was the first in my family. All right, everyone in the room is. I'm sure we've got some friends online who are the first in their family. So I hope this is encouraging news. Over half the people who got a Gilman were first-generation students. So Gilman loves that. Additionally, Gilman is concerned with trying to diversify the students who study abroad. Perhaps not surprisingly, for a long period of time, study abroad has been relegated to Caucasian female students. So it might not be surprising that white people study abroad more often than racial and ethnic minorities, but many are surprised to learn that women study abroad at a rate of about 65% more than men. So if we have any men on the call, you are considered diverse for studying abroad and will be a competitive applicant. But even beyond gender, they care about things such as racial and ethnic minorities. And you see that 70% of Gilman recipients do identify as a racial or ethnic minority. And then 70% come from a rural or small town. Those are just a few of the diversity factors. They also think about things such as, what is it you want to study? What are some disciplines we think are probably very common in study abroad? Any ideas? Yeah, what are some majors or disciplines that might be more common to study abroad? We see a lot of blank majors go abroad. Language, yep, historically language majors. Things like politics, political science, international affairs, a lot of the social sciences. And that's not to say if you're one of these majors, you can't still get it. It just means Gilman loves to see people like nursing majors, biology majors, sciences, math, students who typically haven't been represented well in study abroad. So if you're any of those categories, that's another tick in the competitive application box. Additionally, they like to see things such as, where do you want to go? Where do we think most students want to study? Korea. Well, increasingly lately, South Korea, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how Gilman thinks of South Korea. But Western Europe has traditionally been the most popular: Italy, Spain, France, the UK. And again, not to say that if you really want to study abroad like I did in France, that you can't still get the Gilman. It just means you're going to be competing with that many more students who want to go to those countries. So if you're open to a non-traditional destination, like many countries in Asia, Africa, Central and South America, your likelihood to get the Gilman increases because there's less students applying for those regions, right? And then we see here that since the inception of the program, they've awarded over 36,000 Gilman. Oh, sorry, question. Yeah. So what about if you're undecided? What about if you're undecided? Great question. So as we'll learn about in the application process, you do need to have identified a program by the time you apply. So between now and the application deadline, which is in mid-March, you want to be working with our office so you can help find a program that's a good fit. Okay. So 36,000 students have been awarded. They've traveled to over 160 countries, and they have come from over 1,300 US institutions. Okay, so the scholarship itself, award amounts vary, but they can be as high as $5,000. So this is one of the scholarships with the highest value. The scholarship amount varies depending upon a number of factors: how long your program is, how expensive your program is, what your financial aid package looks like, where you're traveling to, and how competitive or strong your application is. Okay, I'd say for summer programs, I've seen awards range from about 1,500 to about 2,500, and for more longer term programs, we start to see the 4,000 to 5,000 award. The good news is, no matter what term you would like to study abroad, Gilman, you could be eligible for a Gilman. So it's for fall, spring, summer, winter, or even a whole academic year. One of our student workers, Nick, actually is studying in South Korea, and he has been since August. So if you want to go abroad for a year, that could potentially be feasible. So Gilman also awards additional funding for students who are interested in studying what they call a critical need language. So what is meant by that? Critical need languages are languages that the US government has deemed as being important to the national security of the US. So these are less commonly studied languages that the US government would like to see more students pursuing. So on the screen right now are the current languages that they view as being critical need. So if you pick a study abroad program where you will also be studying one of these languages, you could get up to an additional $3,000. So that's now $8,000 potentially that you might be able to earn. Okay, Gilman is a great program because it's much more than money. So if you are lucky enough to be selected for a Gilman scholarship, there are some other benefits. Probably the most exciting from my point of view is what's called non-competitive eligibility for US government jobs. So back when I was a student and I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I was thinking it might be nice to be a diplomat and work for the State Department. And had I earned a Gilman, I would then have this benefit, which means for 1 year after you graduate and earn a Gilman, you can apply for government jobs and be considered more competitively than other applicants. So it's a leg up if you're interested in going into governmental work. In addition, you become part of the Gilman Scholar Network. So they put on professional development seminars, conferences across the country where you would be invited as a Gilman alumni to attend. And these are great networking opportunities, and they help you to build your resume, feel confident in talking about your experience as a Gilman Scholar for future job interviews and so forth. They also have an alumni ambassador program where hopefully you go abroad, have such a great experience and you want to help spread the word. You could become a Gilman ambassador. I've mentioned the seminars they put on, lots of networking opportunities, and certainly helping you continue to develop the skills that you're going to be gaining while you study abroad. All right, so hopefully I've piqued your interest and we're interested in applying, but who is eligible? So in order to be eligible for the Gilman, you must be a US citizen or national because it is funding coming from the US government. This is only for undergraduate students. So if you are a grad student on the call today, know that although this one's not for you, we do have other scholarships that we can connect you with. So just send us an email and we'll help point those out. Probably the most important one is you must be receiving a Pell Grant, okay? And if you're not sure, you can log into your My UIC student financial aid account, and it should be listed there. Or if you don't see it and you don't know, you can also contact the financial aid office, okay? Additionally, you have to choose a credit bearing program, and all of our programs in the study abroad office are credit bearing. So as long as you choose one of those, you're good on that front. And this next point, you don't necessarily need to worry about because we're checking on this, but they want to make sure you're going to safe destinations. So we wouldn't want to pick a country like North Korea, there's no programs there anyways. But we will be looking at the State Department's travel advisory level. So it must be a level 1 or 2, or there are a few level 3 countries. Again, you don't need to necessarily worry about that because we're doing that work on behind the scenes. And there used to be a minimum length requirement. I am so happy they got rid of that, because we have a lot of awesome short-term programs. So now there's no minimum length requirement. Any program you choose, a spring break, a short summer program, is eligible for Gilman. Any questions on the eligibility? All right, just flag me, Kenny, if we get a chat question. So in addition to the Gilman International Scholarship, a few years ago, they introduced this Gilman McCain Scholarship. And this is for students who are a child or a spouse dependent of an active duty military service member. So if your parent or your spouse does serve in one of the armed forces you see listed there, then this could be enough scholarship that you consider applying for. And you see the eligibility criteria listed there. All right, so what's involved in the application process? Full disclosure, I do not like the way this is Gilman's presentation has structured it because it makes it seem more daunting than it is. There's gonna be a lot of slides, just know it's not as complex as they're making it. So I'm gonna try my best to make it seem, as straightforward as it is, but don't get intimidated by these slides. So the application has 2 steps. The part that you have to do is start the online application, and they're going to ask you for information about the program. So that's why I mentioned you definitely need to have identified which program it is you'd like to participate in before you start the application. The main component of this application are essays. So you'll fill in a little bit of information about yourself and the program, and then there are 3, potentially 4 if you go for the critical need language essays you would work on. In addition, they just need a copy of your unofficial transcripts, which are free to obtain through UIC. And then you have to let them know who your advisors are. So all of us study abroad advisors are listed in the Gilman application, and you would just choose whoever you're working with from our office. Then after you complete your part, we do our part. So we will certify your application that yes, you're a student at UIC. Yes, you've chosen one of our programs. And additionally, the financial aid will confirm, yes, you receive a Pell Grant. Okay, so we take care of that for you. So let's talk about these essays, and that's really the bulk of the application. So the first essay is a traditional statement of purpose essay. So why do you want to study abroad? That's basically what you're answering, right? And you want to think about the fact that the reviewers, who are people like Kenny and me, people who work and study abroad, are reading hundreds and hundreds of these. So as we probably have heard before about scholarship essays, you want to think about what your hook is. How can you be memorable? How can you stand out? Okay. And you want to tell your story. So the key you see Gilman gives here for knocking this essay out of the park is think of it as an interview. For a lot of competitive scholarships, usually there will be an actual face-to-face interview, but Gilman doesn't have that. So the essays is the only opportunity for them to get to know who you are and why you want to do this. And tell your story. Okay, stories are more memorable than kind of boring, just straight to the point, right? Find a way to make this a narrative and draw the reviewers in. The key things you want to focus on in this essay are who are you? What is the program you're interested in and why? And what are your goals? Okay. Now, a lot of times I'll read generic statements from students such as, I've always wanted to travel and see the world. And that is a lovely thing. And I agree with it. I want to do it too. But let me tell you how many students write that in their essays, right? You want to go more specific. That is one of the biggest tips I have for this and any scholarship essays you might do is be as specific as possible. What is your major? Why did you pick that major? What do you hope to do later? How does this program help you meet those future goals? And you see here, they break it down into 3 buckets, which we like to talk about in our office. What are the academic reasons you've chosen this program? What are the professional reasons you've chosen this program? And what are the personal reasons, right? Maybe you have family heritage in the country you're choosing to go to and want to build a stronger connection to that, right? And then the last part of your statement of purpose, they want to know study abroad has challenges, right? You know, when I was learning French in Paris, there were so many challenges I encountered on a daily basis because my language skills were rudimentary. So they want to know what challenges have you already overcome? And what skills have you developed from those that are going to help you be successful and study abroad? So that's all it is. Who are you? Why did you choose this program? Why do you want to study abroad? And how are you going to be successful? Does that seem doable? I think so. Okay, so they have these questions here and we can, make these slides available so you can reference them, but this will help you kind of frame your first essay. So do you make a connection between your program and goals? Do you make a connection between the country you've chosen and your goals? Have you shared how you will be academically successful on your program? Do you give examples of your experiences, skills, and knowledge that you'll use to meet the program challenges? And lastly, how will it impact your future? So again, definitely look at these as you're writing your draft. Okay, that takes us to essay 2. So Gilman being a governmental scholarship program, they're really concerned with wanting the students who receive a Gilman to be great examples of US citizens abroad. And what does that mean, right? This is our chance when we travel to be great representatives of our country and our culture. So they want you to talk a little bit about what is your idea of being a great role model as a US citizen traveling abroad. I'm sure many of us might have stereotypes that we know foreigners might think about as Americans. I've heard some say we're very loud, maybe we're entitled, a lot of these negative stereotypes. Well, this is our chance as representatives of our country to rewrite those narratives, right? So you want to talk a little bit about how you plan to do that. Additionally, the whole point of Study Abroad is we want you to be meeting locals. We want you to get to know another culture. So you should talk about in this essay, what are some plans beyond just going to your classes that you want to do to get involved with the host culture? Maybe you want to join some sports teams there. Maybe you really care about service learning and want to volunteer some of your time working with local organizations. Whatever it is, just exemplify how you want to interact with the locals. And that speaks also to that third point of seeking meaningful interactions out. Okay, questions to ask yourself as you write this draft. So do you articulate how you're going to represent the US? Do you explain how you'll contribute to the goal of building mutual understanding between our culture and the host culture? And how, do you talk about how you're going to develop meaningful relationships and be engaged with the host culture? All right. Essay 3 is a small essay, not long at all. But if you receive the Gilman, they want you to give back. They want you to help spread the word about Gilman and study abroad to encourage more students like you to also pursue it. So they ask you to come up with a proposal for what they call a follow-on service project. And the key to this being successful is how will you give back by inspiring others to study abroad? And they say you can do this either on your campus or within your community. So for instance, I had one student I worked with last semester who got the Gilman, who wanted to go back to her high school and talk about study abroad in Gilman to plant that seed early. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. And then the last part of this proposal is, of course, you should be specific in terms of what does your action plan look like? What is your timeline? Who is the audience? How are you going to accomplish this? Okay. A lot of students will say things like, I'll work with the study abroad office and do presentations, and that's all well and good. But again, since so many people do that, try and find something different or creative. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe there's a way you can take your photos from study abroad and do an on-campus art gallery walk about study abroad while promoting Gilman. You know, that's just one quick example off the top of my head, but I'm sure we all have different skills, different passions, and think about how you can blend all those to make a really unique service learning or follow-on service project. Okay, so questions to ask yourself with this draft. So does your follow-on service project increase awareness of Gilman? Is it feasible? So don't get too ambitious. You're students, you're busy, you're working, make it something that's actionable that you know you can complete. Make sure you list that detailed plan. So if you say you want to go back to your high school, what time of year are you planning to do it? When will it have the most impact? Who can you work with to spread the word about the event? All these sorts of details. Make sure, obviously, you incorporate your study abroad experience. So sharing about what you learned, what you experienced, and talking about who your intended audience is. Okay, this last essay is only if you want to go for the critical need language award essay. So first you need to confirm, yes, it is indeed a critical need language. You need to confirm, yes, it's predominantly spoken in the country you're going to. And then you want to articulate how studying this language relates to your academic or career goals. So a lot of what you wrote in the first essay could be pulled into this one. And then what are your reasons? Why do you want to study this language that so many people don't study, right? I studied Russian, so that would have been an opportunity for me to talk about, you know, I loved Russian pop music for some reason, and that's what drew me in. And then I started learning about the history and culture of Russia. And so I wanted to, you know, further my knowledge of that. Okay, so after you knock the application out, which by the way, we are here to help. Some of us in the office have read for Gilman. We've served as reviewers, so we know what they're looking for. And students who earn the Gilman are much more successful if they've worked with us. Now, please don't wait till the week of the deadline to ask for help, because then most people do and we're busy, and so we might not have time. I'd say at the very least, try and get us your drafts if possible the week before. Even earlier, that's great. So we have time to look at those for you. All right, so what are the reviewers looking for? So they're looking for that impact, that connection between the program and country you've chosen to your academic and professional and personal goals. They want to see the impact upon your return and how you plan on giving back. They want to see that you're prepared to be successful. And then, as I mentioned, they want to see a diversity of your background and experiences. And then there's a question.
You know, it's almost, you know, is it a first come, first served scholarship?
No, it's not. So there is a deadline. They will not make any awards until after the deadline passes. They will review all applications and then they will award based on the most competitive applications. Okay.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Does previous international travel experience affect the chances of winning a scholarship? Like if someone were to have a pretty extensive travel background, would that affect? Because I think on the application, they do ask for previous travel experience.
Yes, so officially, based on what they share in this screen, prior experience traveling abroad is not one of the components. I do know, though, that most scholarship applications ask for this, and it can be a factor for consideration. So if they have X amount of monies for awards in France and most of their applicants have never studied abroad, they're probably going to get a slightly higher point criteria to those students who've never traveled abroad. But we've had students who've been very well traveled get the Gilman. So again, I think that's less of a priority to Gilman versus these other aspects. So as long as you hit, I'd say 3 or 4 of these criteria here, even if you've traveled abroad before, you have a really good chance still of getting Gilman. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
How many students are awarded?
Yeah, the funding amount varies each year, but it is in the thousands of students. So it's not something like we have another scholarship we promote where it's 12 students in the whole country who get it, but that's not this. There's thousands, and I don't really know the exact number, but we could look that up later. Okay. Yeah, their goal is to, and they don't award like a ton to students from Harvard, for instance. It's like they try and spread the wealth geographically to make sure that there's good representation from all sorts of institutions. All right, moving on. So deadlines and timelines. So we are in a currently active cycle. There are 2 cycles depending upon when you want to go abroad. Right now, we are in the March deadline cycle, and this would be for programs that start either in May of 2023 all the way through April 2024. So if you think you might want to study abroad at any point during this time frame, then you would want to apply during this cycle. So the application is already open. You can go online now and start it. And you want to make sure you apply and submit everything by March 9th and by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. And then us advisors will be notified, and we'll have till March 16th to certify your deadline. And don't worry, we get notified. You don't have to notify us, and we'll make sure that happens before the deadline. If you're not quite ready to apply for a program and you're thinking more long-term, the next deadline will be October of this year. And that would be for programs starting in December of this year through October 2024. Okay. And that application is going to open in mid-August, and then it will be due October 3rd. Thanks for putting that link in the chat. Right, so they put together some tips about applying, and these come from other Gilman scholars. So as I mentioned, you want to create a compelling story. So tie it to your past, present, and future, and highlight the impact it will have on you. Start the application early, be your truest self, and have confidence that you are worthy. All right, I remember being a student and hearing from my advisors, there's all these scholarships, and I'm just thinking, yeah, but there's so many students, some with higher GPAs than me, I'll never get it. But that's, again, that's not what Gilman's after. Yes, they want to make sure you're academically prepared, but they're not awarding these to students with 4.0 GPAs exclusively. They're more concerned with, have you chosen a program that aligns with your goals, and what diversity factors do you bring, and how have you shown you'll be successful? So have confidence that you can get the scholarship. This tip says for your follow-on service project, think about your community and local schools. Think about how you heard of Gilman and how you could tell others about it. I really like this reflection on the community or a campus part. What are some, challenges we might be facing here in Chicago that an international experience could potentially help solve? If just more students would go abroad and then bring back some ideas, what could we solve in our own backyard, right? Things like that will make a really powerful follow-on service project. And of course, if you don't apply, then you'll never get it. So I forget who said it, I think Wayne Gretzky, but you lose half the chances you don't take, right? So go for it. You have nothing to lose other than a little bit of time writing some essays, right? All right, I'm gonna leave this up real quick in case you want to take a scan of the QR code. For those in the room, it's the same sheet as what you have here, but for those online, if you want the flyer that we have here in the room, you can go ahead and scan that. So I'll leave it up for a couple more seconds. And again, we'll find a way. I think we've got their registration information in Zoom, so we can send these slides out. All right, I want to move into the last part of the presentation to talk a little bit about study abroad specifically at UIC. So before I do, are there any questions about Gilman? Yes.
So the critical need languages, what if you speak one?
All right, really good question. I'm going to repeat for those online. What if you want to go after the critical need language scholarship, what if you already speak the language? So we know we have a lot of students who might be heritage speakers on campus. That is a question I've never had come up, and I'm going to have to do some research. So thank you for raising it, because now I'm super curious. And Kenny, if you can make sure we get your email, we'll follow up. Okay. I'm inclined to believe that as long as you're studying the language as a formal part of your program, that it would still count, but let me make sure, because what we've learned is, of course, heritage speakers can speak the language, but there's still benefits in having formal academic study. So I'm inclined to believe that it will be okay. Any other questions about Gilman? And we should have some time at the end if you think of some. All right, well, we'll move on then. So just want to give a high level information in case you haven't identified a program and you're just getting started looking into this study abroad thing. So a lot of times students ask, well, where can I study? Well, we're really fortunate at UIC to have hundreds of programs. In fact, sometimes it's a little too overwhelming when you look at our website and you see how many opportunities we have. So this graphic just shows you that we're in almost, I think, over 60 countries now around the world. So a lot of opportunities. And if you don't see a program or in a country that you're interested in, let me know, because we want to make sure we fill in those gaps. We do have 3 types of programs, and I want to just talk briefly about these because it might help you in your selection. So the first type are our faculty directed programs. These are short-term programs led by UIC faculty members. So you would travel with a trusted UIC professor and a cohort of UIC students. They tend to occur mostly during summer, although we have some spring break options. And we had our first winter break program that went to India this winter break. So especially if you maybe can't study abroad for a whole semester, they might be a good fit for your academic schedule. I love the fact that they're led by our faculty members. You get to build a really unique relationship with a faculty member outside the classroom, which has its own merits. But beyond that, asking for a letter of recommendation later for graduate school or things like that, it's a great way for them to get to know you and actually be able to write a really compelling letter. And the coursework is easy to understand because it's a UIC course. So you know exactly what credit you're going to get because it's taught by a UIC faculty member. Our second type of program is called partnership programs. This is where we partner with third-party study abroad organizations. You look on our website, you'll see acronyms like CEA, CIEE, IES Abroad. There are a lot of them. All these are organizations who own study centers around the world. And then American college students can apply to go study at those study centers. I like these two because, especially if you haven't done a lot of independent international travel, you still have that support infrastructure on site because they have great residential staff who are there to support you every step of the way. These programs occur during the summer, fall, spring, sometimes academic year. And sometimes they partner with local universities where you could also potentially take classes at a local university while taking classes at the study center. And then the last type of program are called exchange programs. These are where UIC has agreements with universities around the world where we can send a student to study there for a semester or academic year, and in return, they send a student to study here at UIC. One of the neat things about this model is it's the only model where you get charged your exact same UIC tuition. So whatever you pay to come to UIC is what you'll pay for your classes to study abroad. Now, you do have to still pay for your housing and your personal living expenses, but at least you have a really good idea for the tuition. And because of that, whatever financial aid you get to study here easily transfers on an exchange program. You can still use financial aid on the other 2 programs. It just is a little bit more, I think, initially easier to understand how it works because the tuition is the same on an exchange. I like to say exchange programs are perhaps the most culturally immersive study abroad because in effect, you'll be an international student for a semester. So you'll be taking classes with other host students. This usually means that if you're going somewhere where English is not the first language, you probably need to be proficient to be able to follow along in your classes. Although increasingly our exchange partners are beginning to offer more coursework in English, so you might get to take a mix of classes. So yeah, especially if you're thinking of a critical need language or want to just further language study, this can be a really great way. Question?
So the Gilman scholarship applies.
All three, yes. Any of our programs on our website will be applicable for Gilman. All right. Oh, question in the chat. Let's see. Okay, awesome. So I always love to call out that we're more than just study abroad. So beyond just taking classes, we have programs where you could intern, do undergraduate research, or do service learning. So with internships, these are really cool. As I mentioned, I did an internship at Parliament as a junior in college in London. I mean, that was an incredible experience to start my career in, right? The nice thing is you don't have to go find these internships. So our partners find them for you. So you would apply to the program, they would have a call to get to know you, what your career goals are, and then they actually connect you with potential internship placements based on what it is you might like to do. Gilman loves, by the way, all three of these. So they love study abroad in general, but if you add an internship, research, or service learning component, definitely talk about that in your essays, because again, that's more competitive points for you. Going back to internships, though, you don't have to speak a foreign language to intern. They are able to find companies and organizations where the work is done in English. But if you do speak another language, then that's more opportunities for you to get an internship. And then depending upon your major, you may be able to earn academic credit for completing an internship. With research, this is a way to supplement your studies by getting some experience working with a professor abroad on a research project. And especially if you're an undergrad, something like this on your resume, if you're thinking about grad school, is a really, really cool program. If you're in the honors college, you might consider using this as your capstone experience too. So there's a lot of ways you can parlay this into effective things for your academics and professional career. And then service learning, this is kind of the idea of volunteering and giving back to your host community. Many of our partners do build in opportunities to do a service learning project. I think this is one of the best ways to really get to know the challenges some of our host communities face and to thank them for hosting you and to give back to them. You oftentimes get to work alongside locals who care about a certain issue in their communities. So definitely consider these. We know a lot that service learning projects abroad really you need to take care to ethically source them, right? We don't want to be these Western saviors coming into a country saying this is how you should do something. So for all of our partners, we make sure to work with the communities, identify their needs through conversations with them, and they tell us what projects they need you on. We don't try and go in and say, all right, here's what you should be doing. And again, depending on your major, you may be eligible to receive some academic credit for a service learning project. So who do we reach out to see if we can transfer the credits from studying abroad? So that's a good question. If you choose one of the programs on our website, you will not have to worry about transfer credits. Every program on our website, you will be getting UIC credit for, okay? If you choose to do an independent study abroad program, then you would have to work with the registrar's office to see about transferring credits. But all of the hundreds of programs we have, you don't have to worry about transfer credits. Flora, did that answer your question? Great. Okay, so once you're ready to apply for the study abroad program, so this is separate from Gilman, the first step is to literally watch our first step presentation. So it will be a slightly more expanded version of some of the information I just gave you. After you do your first step, Kenny will be notified and then he'll approve you to move on to your actual study abroad program application. Just like you need to be aware of the Gilman deadline, which is when? Let's quiz you. When's the Gilman application deadline? Good question. The current one. All right, March 9th. March 9th. Let's build that into our brains, right? Beyond the Gilman deadline, then you also have to pay attention to your actual program deadline, okay? And all of those are posted on our website. Most of our summer programs, the deadline is March 10th, so the day after Gilman is due, although some do have a slightly earlier deadline, so just pay attention on the web brochure page. Let's see if there was a quick question. Yeah, March 9th, right on. Review the eligibility requirements. So in general, in order to study abroad with UIC, you have to be in good academic and judicial standing. You have to have completed at least one semester here at UIC. Beyond that, some programs might have additional requirements. So for instance, if you're perhaps going to take some really upper level science courses abroad, you might have to pay attention to some course prerequisites that they would have, or some programs might have a GPA requirement to look at. Then the fun part happens. You want to choose a program and you can work with Kenny. He's our exploratory advisor on going through our hundreds of programs and finding the right one for you. And then you apply for your program. All right. So although we've talked about one scholarship, I want you to know that Gilman is not the only scholarship, and you can stack scholarships, and you should. Once you get your Gilman essays in a good state, quite frankly, a lot of the scholarship applications have very similar questions. So if you have a solid set of essays for Gilman, you can just spin those and apply for many other scholarships. So the chart you see here, one of the first projects I did when I arrived at USC is I frequently hear from students, so I can't study abroad because it costs more to study abroad. So I was like, well, let's look at the data. Is that true? So what you see here is the bars that have the UIC logo. One is for the in-state tuition costs and one is for out-of-state. The bars with the globes show you, for instance, what the average low study abroad cost is. So you see that first bar is actually less than what it costs for an in-state student to study at UIC. So yes, you're seeing that right. We have programs that cost less than what it costs to study here at UIC. But even if you're out of state, you see in that middle bar, we have our mid-price point programs, which still cost less than what an out-of-state student would pay. And yes, we have expensive programs like Semester at Sea, which, while incredible, do cost a little bit more than what it would cost to study here. But there are scholarships, again, to help bring those costs down. So beyond scholarships, you can use financial aid. So I always tell students, if you're eligible to submit a FAFSA, you should. Even if you normally don't get much aid from the FAFSA, do it, because study abroad changes what's called your cost of attendance. And so you might get access to additional loans or grants that you typically don't get when you study abroad, but you can't find that out if you don't do your FAFSA. Then beyond Gilman, you see here listed a few other scholarships. So our office has scholarships that you'll be able to apply for. Some departments on campus have their scholarships. So it's always a good idea to ask your academic advisor if they're aware of any of those. There are other nationally competitive scholarships that you can apply for, and those are listed on our website. We talked about the Gilman McCain. And then if you are a first generation college student who is in your first year at UIC, be on the lookout later this semester for an exciting announcement about our First Gen Flames Abroad scholarship. This is a scholarship specifically for first year, first generation college students. If you choose a partnership program, remember these are the IES Abroads, the CIEEs, those acronyms. They have their own scholarships you can apply for, and most of our partners give automatic discounts to UIC students. So that information will be on those program pages. Yep.
The first gen Flames Abroad, so would it count if you apply when you're first year student, but you've actually, the program is actually yours?
Yes, so the way the First Gen Flames Abroad scholarship works is you apply for it during this semester, your second semester of your freshman year. And then if you get it, you have the rest of your time at UIC to use it. So it's kind of like a planning scholarship, you know, all right, I've got this money, now I can look for a program. Did that answer?
So you apply your first year and then the rest of your 4 years?
Yep, you can take your time and decide when you want to use it.
Just for one program?
Just for one program. Yep. Yep. Other question? What would we have to report the scholarships for taxes, including the Gilman? So that question is best directed to the financial aid office. I know they have some information on their website about how scholarships may have tax implications. So I'll refer you to there. And if you can't find the information, if you'll just send us an email, we can help point you in the right direction. In general, though, scholarships, I believe, are usually viewed as non-taxable awards. Other opportunities, such as sometimes reimbursements that come from a UIC, those are taxable. But again, let's just double check that with financial aid. Hey, so if you have questions about Gilman, they gave their information here. You're welcome, of course, to reach out to them, but we're right here with you, so you can always reach out to us. So I'll just move on to that slide. So here's how you can get in touch with us. Our office is on the 5th floor of University Hall. That's the big tower on campus. We're suite 502. You can email us though. Kenny manages our general inbox. He's super responsive, so you'll get a response quick. You can, of course, call us. Put a plug for our Instagram. It's kind of fun to see. We do Instagram takeovers with students who are currently abroad, so you can kind of see what a day in the life is like. We post about other scholarships, cool stuff like that. And then let's see, we've got just more information. Perfect. I think, yep, that's what I had for you today. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And we've got, I think, about 10 or so minutes for any other questions. Curious, is everyone gonna apply? I'm gonna try. Yeah, I'm seeing nodding heads. Maybe thumbs up online if you feel like you're gonna go for it. Awesome, Flora. Javier, great. Yes, I think everyone who's eligible should definitely try. And again, please come talk to us so we can help you. And good luck, Alexandra. It never hurts to try again. Yes, question.
Is the office open?
Great question. Question was, are we open during the summer? Yes, the study abroad office will be open during the summer. It's normal hours. Okay, well, I'll hang out a little bit longer in case you think of questions, but otherwise this concludes our presentation today. Thank you everyone online for joining us. I hope it was helpful. We'll be in touch soon via email to share these slides. And I hope Kenny, myself, and our advisors hear from you to help you on your applications. All right. Have a good day for those of you who are leaving.